So that was
Hey everyone, I'm Kelly Sienkowski, and we're still shining the spotlight on our local elections here at Potomac Local News. Joining me today is Paul Milde, who is running for re-election in District 64. Paul, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Can you tell us a little bit about you?
Sure. I was born in Arlington and kind of grew up in Occoquan, moved to Stafford 35 years ago. I was looking for a place where I could afford a house like so many people. Kept moving south until I got here, and I stuck around, raised a family, and took a business I had just started in Prince William County here, which has grown really large now, about 30 employees, and got involved in politics many years later as a Board of Supervisors member for 3 terms. Really good years, and looking back. On the Board of Supervisors from 2006 until 2017. A lot of great things were happening. We were growing fast, but we were managing it well. And then took a little breaks, part of it on purpose, part of it because I lost an election or two, but finally got it into the House of Delegates where I wanted to be. I was ready to go after so many years, 12 years on the board. I was ready to go to do something more impactful if possible. And I got divorced somewhere in that process and stayed single for a while and started another family. Now I have a little 4-year-old to go along with my older kids.
How many times have you served the House of Delegates?
I'm in my second term, my first term.
Okay, so for all of our viewers, we've invited. I'm sorry, do you want to say something?
No, somehow you're not very. I can't hear you very well, but I've got you turned up full blast. But let's keep going. I can hear you.
Is that better?
I can. Yeah, it's just a little bit muffled, but we'll make it. We'll make it.
Okay.
Keep going.
Well, so for all of our viewers, we ask all of our candidates to participate in this video series. We're asking everyone the same 5 questions, which will all be posted online in a series of articles on PotomacLocalNews.com. All of the videos are also being made available on YouTube. So, Paul, our first question touches on the economy. Virginia has become the data center capital of the world, but a lot of communities have raised concerns about land usage, the water availability, and the demand on the energy. What role should the state play in regulating or guiding the growth of data centers in Virginia?
Well, if I was going to give you a short answer, I would say very little. And the reason, but there are definitely some exceptions. Delegate Michael Weber just wrote a letter last week to Dominion and to the SEC, I guess, stating clearly that we are concerned as a group of delegates about the cost of energy to the consumer. So for whatever reason, just the competition alone for data centers taking up all the electricity, driving up our prices, the transmission lines and transmission equipment that have to be upgraded. We should not, as consumers, business or residential, have to bear any part of that cost. But I'm also, remember, I was 12 years on the Board of Supervisors, so I really believe in local control. I do not think the state should be meddling in when, for instance, forcing localities, like I think what Virginia is doing, to accept data centers, nor do I think they should make it harder for localities to accept data centers. There are great examples of where data centers have been put in the wrong place. And that's unfortunate because it makes anyone that thinks that data centers are a good idea sometimes look bad. But I will get right out there and tell you, I think data centers make a lot of sense in the right place. I was heavy on economic development when I was on the Board of Supervisors. We worked so hard to bring more commercial investment in Stafford. We were a bedroom community. We wanted more jobs here. We wanted more tax revenue, mostly, when we wanted a certain amount of our tax revenue, at least 25% of it, to come from businesses. We knew data centers were available or a possibility for Stafford, but we're trying to get them to come. We had data center ready sites back when the sites were smaller. Quantico Corporate Center had a data center ready site because we were trying to attract them. And almost the minute we got them to come here finally, or by however organically it happened, when they got here, there was a movement to try to stop them. And so data centers aren't evil. They should not be near residential, or they shouldn't be destroying our view sheds of our beautiful rural areas. I think that you can mitigate the water usage. I think the Stafford Technology Campus on Route 1 and Eskimo Hill, they're using wastewater that's going to be just cleaned, not really drinkable. Theoretically it is, and dumped back into the creek. They're using that water. And so, and the noise, of course, when people talk about the noise, they've mitigated the noise problem. I think the exception is when the power goes out. And I don't know about your neighborhood, but when the power goes out, my neighborhood starts humming with generators too. Let's hope that doesn't happen very often. But I just don't think that they're getting a fair shake right now in the public, because we need the tax money. And I could go on and on about why we need the tax money and what's going on in Stafford with your tax rates. But that's a serious consideration. This is a possibility for us to, an opportunity for us to keep the residential taxpayers from paying so much more in taxes.
Thank you, Paul. Our next question, we're going to jump into education. So Virginia ranks 26th in the nation for teachers' pay, but our students typically perform at or above the National Assessment of Educational Progress. So what we're seeing on the test rates is that we are typically meeting or exceeding the average. So do you believe that the state should invest more to fund competitive pay and benefits for teachers, or expand the resources across the district? Or is it best to leave those issues to localities to figure out how to handle them?
Well, as you probably know, the schools are funded three different ways: the feds, the state, and the locality. So, and every piece of that pie is critical. Like the schools can't afford to lose any of that money. And a lot of the state money is pass through money from the feds. So the counties, it's the largest expense. It depends on how you look at it. If you're comparing it to the entire budget of $1 billion that the county has, it's somewhere between 55 and 67 or so percent of the entire revenue the county collects. So that's our biggest investment that we make in our community, and it's for good reason. I absolutely think that the state, because that's where I am now, should be doing more to help Stafford teachers get paid more, and staff. But what we have, if you're not familiar with it, is the cost of competing. COCA is called cost of competing allowance, that was set up 27 or 28 years ago to give the Northern Virginia localities more money for teachers. And of course, this comes out of the pot of money for teachers across the state. And they said the cost of living was higher there, and it was 27 years ago. There's been countless studies from the state that show that Stafford is no longer a cheap place to live or hire people, and our teachers are still getting paid $10,000 or $15,000 less than just the neighboring, just Prince William County, where you can just drive a few miles. It's just ridiculous. We got under Bill Howe, because he was a speaker, he got a 25% stipend, if you will, or a COCA adjustment, which still isn't. We are just as expensive as Prince William County now, and teachers cost just as much in Prince William County as they do in Stafford. And we are at such a competitive disadvantage. It's crazy. And so I've been fighting that for the last 2 years. I've taken floor speeches. We almost got a vote. We got a vote. We almost got a win on that on the House floor, because we kind of put the other Stafford delegates in the crosshairs. If you haven't had Candy Munden King on here yet, and if you're going to have her, you'll have to ask her. So Ms. Delegate Milde would like to know where you stand on COCA increases for Stafford County, because we put her in a tough spot on that, and we're going to do it again. We're going to keep doing it. So yes, and the short answer is yes. Because Stafford is at a disadvantage by the rules of the General Assembly. It has to be fixed. It's not fair.
Our next question is about the federal workforce in Virginia. Virginia has over 180,000 federal employees, and about 11,000 lost their jobs in 2025. So Governor Youngkin obviously created the portal to help some of those displaced workers. Do you believe the state should take the lead in supporting these workers, or is this something localities should handle training and economic support for them?
Well, no, the state is taking the lead on that. Unemployment, of course, is federally funded through the state, and we have to pay, we want to pay, and we are reimbursed 100% for whatever we spend for that. So the first line of defense is obviously unemployment benefits. And then the state, under Governor Youngkin, has done a great job trying to connect people who are out of work with new jobs. I'm a business owner, so I happen to believe that people that are good at what they do or good workers will land well, if not better than they were before. This is a real problem, but I do believe that it's also something that Democrats are intentionally using to try to use as a wedge issue in the election. So they're really playing this up. Now, my district has a lot of government workers, and so I'm sure we have a disproportionate share of that number. But I believe in the idea that we should shrink the size of the federal government. That's not something that's new to me. I've always thought that. And offering, if you ran a business, a large corporation, offering early retirement is one of the things you do to try to get a hold of your cost of labor. So yes, the localities could do something. I'm not saying that they shouldn't, but I do believe the state has stepped into that void. And even the Democrats, even though I think they're doing it for political reasons, have also they have a committee set up, and they have I think probably we'll have a meeting in a few weeks about that again, trying to make sure they are doing everything they can while they embarrass the president, but they'll also inadvertently be trying to do as much as they can for the for the workers that are unemployed now. Yeah.
Okay. Our next question tied into local revenue and our disabled veteran population. The Virginia statewide tax exemption for disabled veterans has led to millions of dollars in lost revenue for some localities. There's a recent bill that passed in the General Assembly that would have reimbursed localities for some of the loss, but if I understand correctly, it didn't make it into the budget. So what steps would you propose to support these localities in maintaining their essential services without reducing the benefits for disabled vets?
Yeah, disabled veterans relief on the county level is if you're 100% disabled, you don't have to pay property taxes on your primary residence. It doesn't really matter if you. It doesn't matter if you. It's not means tested, and that's okay. Let me tell you, we want vets to live in Stafford. I want vets to live in Stafford because they're great neighbors, and they're the kind of people you want here. And we've done a great job attracting them. We have twice as many disabled vets as any other per capita as any other locality. So we're feeling this hit just big time. So what that means to the county's budget is that right now about $21 million is missing from the locally collected revenue, which means about every person that's not disabled that is paying about $500, almost $600 more on their tax bill. Again, I'm happy to do it, but the problem is it's growing. It's going to get into the 50 million range in 15 or 20 years. It has to be dealt with. The state did this. The state offered a constitutional amendment that, of course, I voted for, but they didn't offer any. It's an unfunded mandate. The state absolutely needs to do something about this. Give money to the counties. The bill I think you're talking about. One of the things was LOI. It was a budget amendment that I offered that would change the way the counties get funded based on their value of their real estate. It doesn't allow the counties to exempt all of the disabled veterans properties that don't pay taxes, but they are able, for instance, to exempt churches that don't pay taxes. It's kind of a mistake, if you ask me. It wasn't anticipated when they set this up, and that would have naturally resulted in more revenue being given to the counties that have more of these properties that don't pay taxes. The mathematical formula that's being used doesn't take that into account. So I carried that budget amendment, of course, because I'm a freshman and because the counties if one county benefits, there are counties that will lose something, and that's what you're always dealing with. But I think we're going to make the case over a few years that this has to be dealt with. And Scott Mayoski, our commissioner of the revenue, has done a great job bringing this, highlighting this, and showing other localities, other commissioners what's going on, and kind of, you know, raising the issue up where it needs to be, so we can continue to give, you know, our veterans what they deserve, and also be able to afford it. Because, you know, taxes have gone up in Stafford now. Your home's tax, your business tax have gone up 38% in 4 years. It's unbelievable. When I left the board, we didn't even try to raise taxes every other year. The only time we even put taxes on the table for raising or lowering was after an assessment, which happens every other year. That tradition was just crumpled up and thrown in the trash can in the last several years, and they're just raising taxes every year as they feel they need to, and they're overdoing it. And those are my friends on the Board of Supervisors, but that's a bit much, 38% in 4 years. And it's going to get worse if we don't do something about this veterans tax relief, getting money from the state.
Thank you. So our last question, which is kind of a bigger one. Virginia operates under the Dillon Rule, which limits what the local governments can do without state approval. Do you believe the Dillon Rule should be loosened to give localities more flexibility in areas like housing, zoning, and revenue? Or how do you see that balance between state oversight and local control?
Right. So I learned all about this when I got on the Board of Supervisors. When we had great ideas, when you get elected, you're going to go in there and change things. And you find out immediately from your staff that you're not allowed to do that. And why can't I do that? Because you're not enabled by state law. So what Dillon Rule means is that unless there's a law on the books in the state that says you can do it, for instance, raise tobacco tax or put a gas tax or anything like that, then you can't do it. And so if you want to be able to do something new, you have to ask your legislator to carry that legislation and see if it'll pass. And the other states, roughly half, I think, that don't have a Dillon Rule, they have a lot of latitude. But I got used to working under the Dillon Rule, and now I'm a legislator. I particularly think it makes sense. I wouldn't want 95 counties and however many cities just out there doing whatever they think is a great idea. The Dillon Rule it standardizes the laws in Virginia is what it does. So you know, some of the ones that came up a lot back when in the 2000s, early 2000s, our growth rate was just crazy. Too many people were moving to Stafford. Now nobody seems to be as bothered. They're more worried about data centers, but back then they were worried about people. And we weren't allowed to deny a request to build if you had the zoning already. If you already had the zoning, you couldn't deny them based on what are called adequate public utilities. So you could let them build at the end of a road that was windy with no water and sewer. And that was kind of one of the hardest pills to swallow, because there are places that aren't Dillon Rule or that are and have been given that permission that can't do that. But yeah, I've lived under that as a supervisor and as a delegate. I still think it's probably the smart way to go.
Well, that's lots of our questions, Paul. I want to thank you so much for joining me today.
Sure.
And to all of our viewers, make sure you stay tuned in, stay curious, and stay informed by following us at Potomac Local News as we keep shining the spotlight on all of these local elections. Paul, I hope you have a wonderful day.
Kelly, thank you for having me.